I am thrilled to announce that we have added 2 new guest speakers to our lineup at Unregistered Chicago. Ben Burgess and Batya Ungar Sargon will be joining Curtis Yarvin and me for a weekend of free thought, free speech, and saying things you're not supposed to say. Go to unregisteredacademy.com to get your tickets now to Unregistered Chicago. I hope to see you there. This is the Unregistered podcast, and I'm Thaddeus Russell. This is a show about ideas, people, and behaviors that are considered inappropriate, out of bounds, or beyond the pale. The things you're not supposed to talk about if you're a school teacher, a college professor, a businessman, a politician, a parent, a neighbor, or even a podcast host. These are the things you're not supposed to say or even think if you're a good liberal, a good conservative, or a good citizen. Each week, I'll interview a person who has something bad to say. They might be a journalist or a professor. They might be a porn star or a drug dealer. They might just be an ordinary person with an ordinary job who doesn't care about the rules of polite society. I'm not interested in breaking the rules just to be a troublemaker. I'm interested in people who break the rules of conventional thought and to expand the scope of what is possible to say in our society. I'm interested in people who make me think. On October 7th, 2020, my guest this week was arrested by a team of FBI agents and charged with attempting to kidnap the governor of Michigan. He spent the next 18 months in jail, but he was finally, completely acquitted. This is the story of a political prisoner in the United States of America. And this is my interview with Brandon Caserta. I am joined from an undisclosed location in the Midwest of the United States of America by Brandon Caserta, who was acquitted in federal court of the charge of attempting to kidnap the governor of Michigan. This was in April, and Brandon has been free now for 4 months, and I'm really pleased to have him on this show. Brandon, thank you for coming on.
Hey, what's up? How you guys doing?
So your story is one of the more remarkable ones I've heard, and I have been following this case of the alleged kidnapping plot of Gretchen Whitmer since it began, and I've been following it daily, actually, because I'm a fan of the War Room, and I've been watching Darren Beattie and Julie Kelly report on this many, many, many times, and I didn't know your name until you were acquitted, but I've been following it closely, and it is this and the January 6th case makes my blood boil, because for a lot of reasons. One is that it's very clear that the government, and especially in your case, the government very clearly is really responsible for the whole thing, that you guys were set up. And then I think maybe what makes me the most upset is that the left wing in this country throughout and still believes you to be essentially guilty. Even if you didn't do the thing, you're still guilty of being a bad person, I think. The left wing. So
Yeah.
Brandon, I want to say, you are part of a long tradition in American history, and it's maybe not the ones you think of. I mean, you're part of a few traditions, but you belong. There's a list of names out there. It's a very small list, but you're with Martin Luther King, and you're with Stokely Carmichael, and you're with the Black Panthers. You're with anarchists through history who have been set up by the federal government, especially the FBI, railroaded, prosecuted, persecuted, sometimes exiled, sometimes incarcerated. But you managed to beat all of that. And you're one of the ones who actually beat the case. You defeated the government soundly, completely acquitted, and here you are today. Now, what I want to do is, let's just, for some people who haven't followed this case, let's just do the basics of the case. And then I want to get back and then I want to tell the whole story from beginning to end. So people sort of know where we are and who you are and what this is all about. Let's just do that, spend a few minutes on that, giving the basics of the case. And then we'll spend the rest of the interview like filling it in and making commentary on it. So just tell us, what is this fucking kidnapping plot?
Yeah. I mean, so essentially what we have going on here is a fake conspiracy that was created by, either rogue FBI agents or the entire field office of agents involved. Just no accountability at all. They're able to get approval for whatever they want to do, and they're allowed to essentially create crime or fabricate crime in order to plant it on innocent people who might just be disgruntled about the government, or expressing their feelings about certain governors or whatever. They send people in there and they create these groups online and these training events to get people to go, and then they try to rile them up and get them to say certain things and then record them saying that, so that in court they know how the trial apparatus goes, so they know they can keep a lot of stuff out, and it's really hard for you to provide context for what you were actually talking about, so they can use those snippets against you in court to essentially paint you out to be something that you're not.
Right. Now, this all started in 2020. You were arrested, I believe, in October. Is that right? Of 2020?
Yep. October 7th, 2020.
Along with, I think, 13 other people total.
Yep.
Or alleging for conspiring to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. And then you were acquitted on April 8th of this year. So you spent 18 plus months in jail?
Yes.
And which jail was that?
So I did most of my time in Newaygo County. That's in White Cloud, Michigan. It's a really old county jail that happens to have federal contracts. So you have a mixture of state cases and fed cases that are in there, essentially waiting to either be sentenced or going to trial or taking a plea or whatever they're doing. It's kind of like a holding facility that's a county jail. I spent most of my time there, and then they picked us up randomly one day, like right before trial started, and brought us to Kent County in Grand Rapids, which is really close to the federal building where we had court. And through the duration of the whole trial, I stayed there at that jail.
Now, just a few days ago, two of your co-defendants. Well, I hate even using that terminology, but technically your co-defendants, two of them, Adam Fox and Barry Croft, were unfortunately convicted, and they face, am I right, up to life sentences?
Yeah, they're actually facing double life sentences for both of them. The WMD charge is a life sentence, and the conspiracy to commit kidnapping is also a life sentence.
Right. All right. So I think people know the basics enough, and we're going to fill that all in here, but I want to hear about who you are, because I think actually that really is what this is all about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think who you are is what this is all about. I think who Adam Fox and Barry Croft are is what this is all about. I mean, who you are as people, your identities, the way you look, your beard, your tattoos, certainly your ideas, the books you've read, your attitude about certain things. That's what this is all about. So I want to find out who you are. Now, let me say this, dude. I am from San Francisco, and in fact, I'm there right now. And I'm going to tell you something my stepfather said to me. This was like 20 years ago when the Michigan Militias started. He said to me, "We should go nuke the militias."
Wow.
That's who we're talking about here. So he's not unusual, right? Among liberals and even a lot of left-wingers, the educated class in this country who basically run things, who control the institutions. Let me describe you, if you don't mind. So you have a long red beard, you have braided hair, your sides of your hair are shaved. There you go. Kind of like a Viking. And is that a metal shirt?
Yes, this is definitely a heavy metal shirt. I love my metal.
Mm-hmm. You got tats on your arms, but man, the most disturbing thing is, can you show people you have a goddamn huge tattoo on your neck, which I find very disturbing. And then and then maybe worst of all, you're sitting in front of a flag, a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. So heavy metal, beard. Oh, you got gauges too in your ears. Forgot about that. Tats on the neck. I mean, you call yourself an anarchist, you hate the government. Oh, Forgot the most important thing. You love guns.
Yeah.
I think that might be the most important thing here. That's how we know you're guilty, because you love guns.
Right.
And I actually I do want to talk to you about like what it's been like reuniting with your guns since April 8th. We'll do that later, but yeah. So I mean, put that all together, in the minds of the average MSNBC, CNN viewer, hey, the minds of the average congressperson, professor, those people, the people who run this country, right? Neck tattoos, you love guns, anti-government, heavy metal. You're definitely, sir, a white supremacist.
Yep.
Don't shake your
That's
head. You know you are. We know, even though you got acquitted on this thing, we know deep inside that little white head of yours, you are a racist.
yeah. See, that's the problem with a lot of people in our society is they're so ensconced in the 5 sense reality of what their perception is of visual things and how something might sound. They're not willing to dive deep into that individual and actually see what's in their mind. What do they believe? You know what I mean? What do they care about? And if they did that, they would realize that we're not so different.
I forgot the characteristic about you that is actually the most damning thing. It's two things. You are from the Midwest, flyover country, and you're a machinist, and your father was a truck driver. So liberals used to say, "Oh, that's the working class." And they're wonderful and we love them and we support their struggles. But nowadays, if you're a white working class person from the Midwest with who loves guns and all the things we talked about with you, you're guilty of cultural crime. You're doing the wrong things with your life, and you're definitely not to be trusted. So let's talk about that. I want to talk about class, because I do think class is really what this is all about, actually, at base. Because the
Mm.
characteristics we talked about, the tattoos, the guns, the heavy metal, those are characteristics that you'll find among working class people in places like where you used to be, Michigan. So,
Yeah.
so let's talk about this. So you grew up in, were you born in Detroit?
Yep. So I was born in Detroit, Michigan, on Outer Drive in Wayne County, Michigan.
And you grew up near there, right? Downriver?
Yep. Whole downriver area, Metro Detroit area as well.
Okay. And yeah, talk about, so who's your father and mother? Who are they? What did they do? What do they do?
Yeah. So my mother and my real father were never actually together, but my stepfather and my real father both drove trucks. They were truck drivers, and I grew up mostly with my mother and my stepdad. My real dad was kind of around, but not as much as I would like to be. My real father actually wound up passing away when I was 17, and that was pretty hard experience to go through. But essentially, like my stepfather was the one that was there to like teach me a lot of things and raise me and stuff like that. And I grew up in a really just basic kind of like lower middle class family in New Boston, Michigan, which is kind of a little bit of an outskirt of, it's in Wayne County, but it's a little bit just on the outside of Downriver. And most of my family lived in the city in Downriver. And that's where I grew up. I went to, a really regular school. I mean, a really regular, I guess you could say for the term, childhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you became a machinist, is that right? A machine operator?
Yep.
And when did that happen, and why?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been into like mechanical stuff, like working on my bicycles, fixing things up. Whenever I had something wrong with my car, me and my pops would go out there and fix it. So I always, and I listen to heavy metal music, so there's this natural, inclination to go towards steel and metal and
Hmm.
tools and stuff like that. So as I got older, I learned how to build mountain bikes and stuff like that. So I'm riding mountain bikes and doing that whole thing, playing music, so playing guitar and bass and stuff. And I would say probably like my mid 20s when I started doing the machining stuff, and I realized it was something I was really good at. And you know, I think it's a really important service. You know, it's providing like crucial parts for vehicles, motor vehicles that we have in
Yeah.
society, and we absolutely need those. And
Hmm.
the worst thing ever is like if I order a gun part or I order some sort of machined part and it's not machined correctly, it's like you know what I mean? Like it's not that hard to really make sure that that part is in spec, you know. So I just wanted to be, you know, the person that made sure we'd never run any scrap and always have good parts.
Oh, Jesus. I just realized you're also contributing to climate change.
Yeah, that's
Like,
yeah,
I,
and I'm not the one flying you know, $2 million jets in the sky every day, right?
I mean, I'm just saying it's amazing you're not under the jail at this point.
Right, right.
Okay, heavy metal, sir. I have to say I like all genres of music except maybe heavy metal. Although I like a little bit, but I only like the really cheesy, corny pop metal, so it doesn't even count. Can you like can you try to explain to me um the appeal of it for you? I think I get it, but I really I'd like to feel it. Can you talk about the feeling of heavy metal that you had when you were a kid first listening to it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, as I started teaching myself how to play guitar, I wanted to challenge myself the most. And when I was learning like, you know,
Hmm.
certain punk music or pop music on guitar, even some old like classic rock, it was fun to play, but it wasn't hard enough. You know what I mean? I really wanted to be as technical as I possibly could on the guitar and play the hardest thing that I could. And you know, because of that, it was there was a straight line vector right to metal music. You know, listening to Metallica as a kid and hearing those solos from Kurt Hammett, and you know, the super fast down picking from James Hetfield and Pantera and stuff. That really drew my attention. And I've always kind of been a rebellious person. Like, you
Hmm.
know, you can even ask my mom. Even when I was a kid, you know, if something is being asserted, I'm usually going to challenge it to see if it's true. You know, I'm not the type of person that's just going to
Hmm.
do whatever someone tells me to do. So that part of metal really drew me in, you know, the technical
Hmm.
aspect of it, and then the aspect of kind of like, hey, you can't boss me around and tell me what to do. Um, so that's what drew me into it. And as I got older, I realized there was a whole another spiritual level. It's like,
Huh.
you know, as someone who cares about freedom and rights, there always has to be a rebellious nature to that. You know,
Hmm.
blind obedience is not freedom, it's
Hmm.
always slavery. So listening to the lyrics, and I know some people are like, well, I can't even understand what they're saying. Well, the remedy to that is to pull up the lyrics online and listen
Hmm.
to the lyrics and then you'll be able to be like, oh, I understand what they're saying. So as I'm reading some of these lyrics, I mean, there's just so much power. And what I realize is like, if you're gonna really want to give a message and put a message out there, my temperament isn't the kind where I'm just going to be like, oh, okay, well, you know, this is how it is. And, you know, I'm going to walk you through this. No, it's like, if you want to get something out important, you got to stand up there and you got to yell it out there. You got to yell it for everyone to hear. And that's where kind of the aggressive nature of metal comes into play, because if you really read the lyrics and listen to what they're talking about serious current events. They're talking about all different types of corruption in the government. And they're
Hmm.
talking about empowerment to uh, get through those horrible experiences that you experience in life, or those things that you know, you're having trouble wrapping your mind around. Metal helps with that, and it gives you empowerment to be able to get through that. And a lot of the bands may appear to be, you know, evil or satanic, and that's really not it.
Hmm.
What it kind of is it's kind of like a theater. And this is how I explain it. Like, a lot of times metal bands are all super cool dudes, you know, high morality, high intelligence, um, but their message is trying to get you empowered through a scenario. In order to do that, they have to kind of embody the evil that they're talking about, like a theater,
Hmm.
like a play. They embody it and project that out on stage so that you see what's happening and you're like, okay, and then you can take that scene that you've decoded and then look out into the world and say, wow, what they were just talking about is actually happening out here. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So now, I mean, the feeling you get from listening to metal is, lots of anger. I would even say rage, and some violent imagery, of course. What I mean is there must, and there's still, is the mosh pit still part of heavy metal? I don't know. Is that like he's
Yeah, on some shows it is, like some shows you go to, but it's also there's kind of this newer thing like called hardcore dancing. You know what I mean? Where they're like, dancing in the
yeah.
pit, throwing their arms and kicking like karate stuff. I was never really, I mean, I'll go in the pit sometimes, but I was more so like the dude on the stage playing the music,
Oh yes.
getting
Right. So
everyone else riled up.
okay, so you were in bands.
Yes, yeah.
How long did you play in bands?
I was in a few bands. I was in a band called Dweller, Die Strong, Montana. Um, yeah, a few bands. It was local stuff. We played local shows, went on like a couple small tours. Wasn't anything super big.
Hmm. I guess I'm thinking about anger again, and when I watch heavy metal or listen to it, I think, well, the guys who like this have a lot of anger, which is totally fine. I got a lot of anger too. I express it just in different ways through different musical forms. But I'm just curious. I mean, were you angry about things other than politics?
Um, I mean, I was frustrated in many ways of what was going on in the world, but as far as metal's concerned, metal actually helps me, um, kind of focus that anger either into music or blow off some of that steam in a different way. Like it's not that I hate the world and hate society or people that listen to heavy metal, just, hate everyone. Now,
Mhm.
look, there is a problem in the metal scene with like nihilism and socialism and communism. And I always call those people out because a lot of the people that, they got the purple hair and the piercings or whatever, they're like, yeah, I'm edgy, I'm going to this metal show. You talk to them for like 5 minutes, you're like, dude, you're a communist, bro. Like, this isn't what this is about. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, you need to quit that college course you're taking, dude, because you're getting brainwashed. But yeah, it's just more of a way to kind of channel, uh, when you listen to the music, it feels empowering and you feel those goosebumps, you know what I mean? And you're like, hell yeah. And they're like, you know what, I'm gonna do something about this. I wanna create this or talk about that. It's more so giving me energy and empowerment to be able to use that energy in a more focused way to create something positive in the world.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. Yes. Thank you for that. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. I think I know the answer to this. How'd you feel about school?
Yeah, didn't like it at all. I couldn't wait to get out.
Yeah. Public schools, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, very public, super public school.
What do you mean?
I mean,
Very public.
just like, public schools are funded by coercive taxation, and public schools aren't very good as far as teaching people how to learn. They're more so about indoctrinating them into authority and obedience. So that's the type of school that I went through. I mean, like our principal was a guy who walked around with a Bible and told everyone to like be quiet if he heard a swear word. Like if you said, "Oh damn," he would just show up out of nowhere and be like, "Excuse me, sir, you cannot be swearing in here." And we're just like, okay. And that's nothing against religion at all. I'm just saying that's kind of the how the
Sure.
guy operated.
Sure. Okay, since you've been called a white supremacist about 10,000 times, I have to ask this question. But you're from the Detroit area. And of course, anybody who knows the Detroit area, which I do, I mean, it's Detroit, there's Detroit and then there's the suburbs, and they're very different places. And you're from, I guess, what would be called a working class suburb, I suppose. What can you just talk about race? I don't have a better question than that. I mean, like, do you have any thoughts about it? Do you care? I don't even care. I mean, does this matter? Does race matter to you? I guess is the question I have. Does it matter to you in any way?
I mean, if someone wants to get into their culture, their ancient culture or whatever their modern culture is, that's fine. But I believe that race is a total diversion, and it's a way to get people focused on something that isn't the actual issue. You know what I mean? It's a tool to create division in society. because ultimately, you know, I kind of like David Icke's quote about this, and you know, he can be controversial, whatever, but he said a lot of things that I believe are right. You know, racism is like two people in outer space wearing a spacesuit and saying, "Hey, my spacesuit's better than yours because it's a different color." You know, it's really irrelevant. What matters is the consciousness inside of the spacesuit. That's what really matters.
Nice. You mentioned David Icke. I actually spoke at Anarchopulco when he was a speaker there too. I've never met the guy, but I know a little bit about him and how controversial he is. But so let's talk about this. Books, like books written by David Icke. You got interested in anarchism, I think, as a teenager. Is that right?
No, I would say honestly, man, it was like in my later 20s. Now,
Oh,
people like David Icke and like Mark Passio and stuff like that. I knew about them, and I was understanding the knowledge and things like that. But it didn't really click to me what anarchism actually was until later on, and I said, "Oh my God, this is what it is." In the main book that did that for me was The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose. I
yeah.
mean, that man right there essentially just took all the puzzle pieces for me and put them together and said, "This is what it is." And I said, "Dude, I believed that my whole life. I just didn't know how to put it together and didn't know that other people actually thought that there was something wrong here. You know, that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, these police agents, you know, these government officials, they can't do that. That's wrong." You know, and you say that in society and they're like, "Well, they're the authority," you know. And then you read that book and you're like, "Wow, you know what, actually authority doesn't even exist. I have the right to own myself, and no one else has the right to have a higher claim over my life and property than me."
So were your parents political?
Here's the interesting thing. So my parents were never political at all, and as I started waking up, you know, they lived somewhere else. We
Mm.
communicated a little bit, like I communicated with my mother a little bit, you know. But I would say, so I've been locked up for 2 years, or I was locked up for 2 years, been out for 4 months almost. Yeah, like two. So I would say 5, maybe 6 years ago, there had been some sort of different awakening that happened for both of us simultaneously.
Wow.
Mine went a little bit, you know, higher, but hers actually started to happen.
Hmm.
Same thing with my stepdad and my sister. They were starting to realize a lot of things that were going on in the world and becoming more aware. Prior to that, if I would try to talk to any of my family members about what was going on in the world, their kind of MO was just like, if I don't pay attention to it and I don't look at it, then it doesn't exist. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
affect me. And now that's changed a lot, especially with what's happened to me. What happened to me essentially took my family from a level that they were at and boom, and woke them up all the way up to where they're like, "Okay, there's
Oh,
absolutely something going on," you know, like the
oh,
government just tried to take my child away for life for something he never did, you know.
wow. Right. You've become a martyr in that way. I mean, in a good way. The government really fucked up in that way by creating martyrs for this. Don't
Yeah.
you think? I mean, people are looking at you now, and this is why you're doing what you're doing media like this interview. Because boy, you're out there now, and it's so patently a case of injustice. But okay, so your mom started to become a little bit political about 5 years ago, long before the case started, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's a couple years.
Okay, and sort of in your direction, sort of a anarchistic direction.
A little bit. They kind of went more towards the Republican-ish kind of thing, you know, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the Trump. I wouldn't call them Q or anything, but it's like the kind of Trump, a little bit Trump variant that's not. They're a little bit more open-minded to certain conspiracies, you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
understanding of that dynamic. Uh, but now it's kind of like a little bit more libertarian without actually knowing all of the principles. If I question them and ask them questions about what they believe, they're going to answer just like an anarchist, but they don't totally know it yet. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
they're still on that journey.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Now, let's do 2020. Let's talk about 2020. Great year in American history, right? Uh, so you're living in Michigan at that time, and COVID starts and the lockdowns start, and Gretchen Whitmer is a leader in that, in locking down her state more aggressively, I think, than any other state. And
Yep.
I'm sure, we're not happy about that.
Yeah, no, I was not happy about that. I disagreed with everything that she did philosophically. You know, it was
Mhm.
wrong for her to do all the stuff that she did.
Yeah. And then in June, I think it was, the George Floyd case happens, or was it May or June? Anyway, we all know, the summer of 2020, everything blows up and cities are burning. And you're watching this. What were your feelings at the time?
Yeah, so, you know, a couple of years prior to this, I started training with firearms. I
Mm,
realized self-defense was one of the most important principles to be able to have and to be able to master. So I started mastering that with the tools that I had available. And as time goes on, I'm reading more books and getting armed philosophically on what's going on. And when COVID happened, I immediately thought something was suspicious about this. I
mm,
said, whether this is real or not, the state's going to try to co-opt this problem in order to push an agenda. And I actually didn't suffer in any way through the pandemic or whatever you want to call it. Which is interesting because they tried to play it out like I just hated the governor so much and just suffered through the pandemic. So now I want to, use violence against her and just get revenge. But in all reality, I literally got like a 4 month paid vacation and got to chill at home, and do whatever I love to do. Like I literally
mhm,
wasn't even affected. Like, yeah, someone might tell me to wear a mask or something, and
mhm,
not let me in the business. And yeah, I would make a video about that and explain how that's, philosophically wrong and stuff like that. But as far as like being destitute monetarily or anything, dude, I was straight. Now some of the
mm,
other guys, like Fox, he was kind of the
mhm.
homeless dude in the vacuum store and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he didn't really have a whole lot. That's why the government really wanted to prey on him and
Mhm,
get him. So yeah, that's what happened, and essentially kind of how I got involved with these guys is um seeing what was going on. I'm a single guy in my own place. I'm kind of in an inner city. It's a little bit more of a liberal side, but it's a nice city. It's not. There are some ghettos in there, but essentially it's pretty safe for the most part. But I'm seeing what's going on, and I'm like, man, my family's out of state. I don't really have anyone like to help protect me or my property besides myself. So maybe there's got to be some other people out there that see what's going on in the world and they want to organize and be like, hey, man, if something bad happens, we can be there to protect each other. So I started reaching out a little bit more, and you know, we can get into that if you want. But I just essentially met someone online, Joe Morrison, and he invited me to his house to train. And something I want to clarify too, I was never a member of Wolverine Watchmen, like
right.
never at all. Like they kept saying I was literally an individual that showed up at this training event, got to know a couple people, trained there maybe twice, and then whatever group they had or whatever kind of splintered away from the like Joe Morrison and Pete Musico. That's Wolverine Watchmen. You know what I mean? The
Mhm.
other guys that I trained with were never that. So yeah, that's how that went. But that's kind of how I met them. Was just there was a lot going on in society, and I wanted to kind of organize and meet up with people because I felt like things were going to get really, really bad, and we needed to prepare for that.
It's called prepping, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So I think is this right? Wolverine Watchmen was formed in 2019, just the year before. Is that right?
Yep. Like December 2019 by Joe Morrison.
Yeah. So just like one or two guys at that point, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And you found them online, in a chat group, and he hits you up to come train with them. And that is like in June of 2020.
Yes, sir. June 14th of 2020. I had talked to him in late May, and then he wound up inviting me a couple weeks later in
Okay. Now,
June 14th.
do you know anything about the history of militias in Michigan? Because that's kind of where that movement started. As I referenced, the people that my stepfather wanted to nuke started in the 90s, I think, during the Clinton administration in Michigan. Now, Michigan was like the center of the militia movement in this country. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah.
I don't. I
Yeah,
only know a
absolutely.
little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I know about like Norm Olson, I believe his name is. And I did a little bit of cursory research on
Hmm.
it, which is what led me the first people I started talking to were in the Southeast Michigan Volunteer Militia. So there is no official Michigan militia anymore. It's
Right.
kind of like these smaller groups in like the eastern side or the western side of the state. It's kind of more like older gentlemen. You know what I mean? There's some young
Hmm.
guys that shoot in there, but essentially they're kind of middle aged or a little bit older, whatever, and they care about freedom, but they're more so they want government to be there. They want that should never
Mm.
go away. And I'm not really like that, and I wanted to find a younger group of people. So they actually helped me out with a lot. Like one of the guys helped me put a new trigger in my AR-15. I mean, they were super cool, really nice guys. We didn't agree on everything, but we did agree on a lot. So yeah, I got into contact with them, and Joe was also friends with them. So that's how they kind of found me.
Okay. Well, I asked that because, according to my reading, the Wolverine Watchman was not even known by either militias or like all the groups that monitor militias, which, the ADL and all these, Southern Poverty Legal Center, whatever it's called, Law Center. They spend all their time monitoring militias. And they said, I think at the time, we never heard of this group. But which is very odd because, as I said, Michigan has a fairly rich history of this. And you would think that this would have this group would have some kind of grounding in that community, in that culture, but apparently it didn't. It's kind of sort of emerged out of nowhere, and so that's why I'm wondering, if this is was a real thing from the beginning, or was it a fed operation from the get-go?
Right. That's an interesting take. I think it's very possible. I mean, all the groups involved in my case, there was like four different groups. Michigan Patriot 3%, the Oath Keeper, this or that.
Hmm.
Dude, all of these groups were online and literally created by informants at the direction of federal agents.
Say
The
that.
training events, the websites, all of it.
Say this again. This was all created by federal agents.
Yes, Adam Fox was designated to the leader of the Michigan Patriot 3%, chapter, right? That's a
Hmm.
fake chapter created by the FBI. They're directing Steve Robeson to create a website and set up training events and get hundreds of people from around the state to come and train. He's been doing this for like years. So they spend so much time getting all these Facebook groups set up and training events set up. So the people that go there, they're just like, oh, thinking this is a family event. They're going to shoot some guns, have a barbecue, have some fun. Little do they know, all of it was created by the FBI. The FBI says, hey, we got this informant. We want you to create this website. We want you to do this and do that. And they do it and they get money for it.
Yeah, I've heard you say elsewhere that most militias, or maybe almost all militias, have informants active within them now. So if you want to join a militia group now, be very, very wary. Is that right?
Yes, just be very careful. Don't let stories like mine stop you from organizing and talking to people and wanting to talk about freedom and wanting to train with firearms. But just be aware. Just be aware of what's going on.
Okay. So you start training with them in June, and you do that. What's the extent of your activity? You said you went to like two things with them. You were never a member. What was the extent of your participation in this with this group?
Yeah, so I was never anyone with authority per se. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say when a training event was going to happen. I didn't direct any skills that were being developed as far as training is concerned. I didn't build anything. I wasn't even on the leadership roster. As an anarchist, I don't. If you want to have a hierarchy, that's fine. The hierarchy can be based off consent and skills, but
Mm-hmm.
a commander or anything like that, like I straight up told them, like, dude, I don't care what you call yourself. You can call yourself God, commander. I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. You know, I'm going to make my own choices. And I kind of got sidetracked.
Well, no, what were you actually doing with them when you
Oh,
went?
okay, right.
Like,
Yeah, so I just show.
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just show up with my gear, and they would already have like medical training happening. They had some ex-military guys who knew how to, you know, apply tourniquets and chest seals and all that stuff. So it was really fun. Like there was so much to learn that you didn't know before, and you had people who knew what they were doing, you know, teaching you. They had a shoot house set up. You know, we even did like some vehicle drills where, you know, let's say you're driving in your car, you know, and then chaos happens, you know, there's a riot or whatever, and people are attacking you, you know, you can run through that scenario and know how to defend yourself. And that's the type of stuff we did. It was all defensive. No one ever was like, "Oh, we're training to do this to kill police," or "We're doing this shoot house to get that bitch." You know what I'm saying? Like no
Mhm.
one ever said that ever.
Okay. And okay. And so let's talk about some of the men involved in this. And I think these are just incredible stories. So you said Joe Morrison sort of founded this group. He's the one who recruited you to it. And there was also this guy, Adam Fox, whose story is pretty, I don't know what you want to say, horrifying. But can you just talk about Adam Fox?
Yeah, so, you know, I don't hate Adam as a human being. Um, you know, I think he cares about freedom, and but I also like I don't like him also at the same time. Like he's very he's very annoying to me. He's very dumb. He's very easy to manipulate. He's like very childish, you know. He's like a
Mhm.
40 something year old guy who he's not aware of where his level is at in society, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
if you
Mhm.
go with a group of guys and they're MMA fighters, right? And you know you've only fought a couple times, but you're going up there like, oh yeah, man, I could kick your butt, like blah blah blah. Like they're gonna look at you like, dude, you have no idea like where you're even at in the hierarchy. And that's kind of how he is. Is he was horrible with his firearm. He was unsafe with it. He didn't even have sights on his gun for like months, right? I had to show him what red dot to get. Like, hey, you need to put a red dot on that gun, dude, because you don't even have iron sights. Um, and he was no one really wanted him around. Like the informant Dan kept trying to bring him into our training. You know what I'm saying? Whenever we would train, and we'd be like, "Nah, dude, we're good. Like, I don't want that." We even voted on it in the chat. You know, and
Oh,
I'm like, "Yeah, like not gonna happen." And you know, he wound up just being able to bring him around just by pushing it and pushing it. So yeah, he's you know he suffered a lot in the pandemic. He lost a lot of money. He was really affected by the lockdowns for sure.
and where was he living?
Yeah, he was living in the basement of what's called the Vac Shack. It's a vacuum repair shop in somewhere around Grand Rapids, and he was living there. You know, kind of just hanging out, smoking weed all day. I mean, he literally smoked like 10 times a day. Every time I saw him, he was smoking.
He sounds like the government's dream come true. He's the perfect mark for them, isn't he?
Yep, absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
And so the informant you mentioned, Dan, there are two Dans in this story, and they're completely different people. There's Dan Harris, who's a good guy, and then there's the informant Dan. Is this Chapel you're talking about?
Yep, Jan
Okay.
Chapel.
So yeah, talk about there's Dan Chapel and Steve Robeson are the main informants, correct?
Technically, yes. Yes. Yep. Well, yeah, they're the main informants, and then you have a couple other informants and undercover feds.
Okay, so now are you dealing with these guys from the get-go? You're interacting with Dan Chapel and Steve Robeson from the start?
Yeah, so Steve Robeson, you know, I only saw him like twice. Once was at Wisconsin, which was a training event he set up. And then the second one was at Luther. I literally like never even talked to him at Luther. Maybe for like 2 seconds, like, hey, what's up, bro? And then I went and did my own thing. Um, but Yeah, I'm sorry. What was your question?
Well, no, how much? I just want to hear about your interactions with these informants.
Oh, okay. Right, right. So not much interaction with Steve Robeson. Now with Dan Chappell, I did have a little bit more interaction with him, but my perception of him was like I thought he was a Fed, to be honest with you. I thought he was a Fed or an informant or something based off
Oh, yeah.
a small experience that we had. But I said, I mean, even if he is, number one, I'm not doing anything wrong. And
Hmm.
number two, he's like training me. So when I'm showing up to these trainings, he's running it and showing everyone how to do everything. And he's good with guns. So it's like someone you can learn from. You know what I mean? He was
Mm-hmm.
saw combat. So I'm like, well, whatever. Like I'm gonna get training from this person. It's free. This guy's giving out hundreds of dollars of worth of training for free. Why not take it? So, and then I thought, well, even if he is a Fed, he can't train me. Like, what Fed like does that? They're not even allowed to do that, right?
Right. That
Yeah,
would be crazy, Brandon. That would be
right.
crazy.
That'd be crazy. So I'm like, whatever, not doing anything
Wow.
wrong. He's giving me some training, so screw it. So he was just like my trainer. Essentially, the government trained me with combat firearms for like 4 months.
Talk about creating blowback. What the government was doing, right? And then they martyr
Right.
you. Then they martyr you, and you get to do this media tour while you're getting free firearms training from them. Okay, uh, so talk about this interaction with Dan Chappell that made you suspect he was a Fed.
Yeah. So I wanted to have a meeting at my house just to kind of go through a threat matrix. I wanted to actually have some sort of organization. I tried to get the group organized, but it was so disorganized and kind of childish that it was
Hmm.
nearly impossible. That made me understand as when I got arrested and went through the discovery, I understand why the government preyed on this group. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Because it's very childish, very disorganized.
Okay.
But I invited them, or I invited the group. Only the government showed up, so with a wire. So
Wow.
Dan shows up and records me, helps me fix my car and stuff like that. And I kind of want to just go over some whiteboard stuff on, hey, this is what's happening in society. Let's have like little news updates for the group to
Hmm.
kind of give them informed on what's happening on a day-to-day basis, and then we could like talk about it and see what type of approaches we could use to make sure that bad stuff doesn't happen to us, right? And that never worked. But while he was there, he came in and look, we're guys with guns. We shoot guns. We handle them all the time. So if you come over my house and I know you're about guns, what I'm going to do is be like, hey, bro, here, check my gun out. I'm going to hand it to you. They're usually a normal person. What they do is they take the magazine out, rack the slide, check the chamber. Oh, man, this is cool. Kind of aim it a little bit or whatever. They're interested in, oh, wow, this is nice. Oh, this is nice stippling. Or, oh, this is a cool handguard. He wouldn't take the gun. Like, I was like, here, dude, check it out. And he was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. And I'm like, yeah, it is. You want to check it out? You know what I mean? Like, hold it. And he's like not wanting to put his fingerprints on my gun. And I'm like, that is just the weirdest thing to
Hmm.
me, how you're apprehensive. And he was like really sweaty and stuff. He was like sweating. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. This is a little bit weird, but whatever. He wound up picking it up and holding it for like a second. But that right there was like a red flag to me, though. It was like, yeah, that doesn't sit right with me.
But you kept training with him.
Yeah, yep. I kept training with him because, like I said before,
Yeah.
even if he was, it was like, well, maybe he's just kind of a weird guy. And some
Hmm.
people are weird. They have their own little quirks about them. So I'm like, he's training me though. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm not doing anything wrong. He's training me. So even if he is a cop, so what? Like, what are they going to do? Try to frame me in a fake conspiracy and arrest me? I mean, come
No.
on.
Okay. Right. Exactly. As I said, that would be crazy. So, what what specifically were you prepping for? What were your concerns? What were you worried might happen in society in the summer of 2020 when you're doing all this?
Yeah, so kind of the main thing that I was concerned about was mandatory vaccinations. I thought that there was going to be a lot of
Hmm.
economic failure. And mind you, but at that time, the vaccine never hadn't even come out yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I just know how governments operate, and I could see that coming down the pipe. So I was concerned about that. I thought that would have a huge economic consequence. Um, and I was, I told myself, well, I'm not going to get it. So I need to be prepared to be able to not have money or not work for, I don't know how long. I don't know how long it's going to be. So I need to prep for as long as I can. Right. And then I was concerned with some sort of lockdown with the mandatory vaccinations,
Mm-hmm.
and I was all the money that was being printed. I knew later on that was going to affect everybody. So they signed this 6.6 trillion, whatever, blah blah blah. The Federal Reserve just printing the stuff out. So I'm like that. All this whole thing is going to have a huge effect on the economy later. So I need to prepare for that as well. And once people start getting hungry, they're going to get angry. And then the neighbor that you thought was your friend, when he doesn't have food, you're no longer his friend if you have food. So that's kind of a few of the concerns. Plus, the rioting just gave it validity. All
Mm-hmm.
the rioting and stuff just gave all the other stuff validity of the possibility of that happening.
Right. Okay. Okay. So you're saying and this is just a few months you were involved with these guys, right?
Yep.
Okay. And you're saying during that whole time you just trained guns, medical care, prepping, all this stuff, basically military training in certain ways. That's it. That's all you did. You never heard anything about any conspiracy to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer?
No, no. So, mind you, a lot of people talked crap about politicians. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we'd be at training events after we got done with the FTX, which just means a field training exercise. After we got done with that, we'd set our guns aside and have some beers. And, you got a bunch of, libertarian slash anarchist people, drinking beer and they love guns and, they're pretty disgruntled about the government. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
talk some pretty big stuff, you know what I mean, about
Mm-hmm.
politicians. And I don't know about some people, but that's why I thought was interesting about these kind of elitist prosecutors. It's like they've never experienced like real people. Like when you're in a working class, you know, uh, suburb or whatever, and you're
Mm-hmm.
chilling drinking beers, like, dude, everybody talks like that.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone like swears like a sailor. They say
Mm-hmm.
super nasty, gross, violent things about politicians and all that stuff. That is literally like normal. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
weird for us to go out and be training and then talk a bunch of crap about the governor. The problem is you have the FBI coming in and then hearing someone say something, right? And they go, oh, we could manipulate that guy to probably doing something. Let's prey on him and try to get him involved and paint him to be a leader and do all these things. And then this group of people, even if we can't get anyone to do anything, we'll just say that that was his, kill squad, his soldiers. And hey, no one's going to believe that guy. Look at him. He's got tattoos everywhere. He said he's an anarchist. He's swearing, he's talking bad about police. He has a scary gun. Yeah, that guy will never, no one will ever trust him or believe what he has to say. So we're good.
Yep. How did they prey on Adam Fox?
They preyed on him by making him think that he was something that he wasn't.
Mm.
Um, they preyed on him by, Adam is a very loving person. Like he's naive in the idea that he will trust people
Mm.
easily.
Mm.
And government agents can be very good at psychology when they're working like out in the field, and they know how to lie very well. They know how to manipulate people and make people think that they're your friend and that they're there for your best interest. And they told him, oh no, you're good with firearms, you know what I mean, your ideas are great, you have such
Mm.
good ideas, you need to be the leader of this group, you need to be the leader of the Michigan chapter and really put your ideas out there, and you could have a whole bunch of people behind you. You're great, man. Let's talk about your ideas. Let's talk more about that. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? How about we do this? And just over time get them focused on certain things.
And was this Chappell and Robeson doing most of this with him?
Oh yeah, you had Chappell and Robeson, and then you had another what was an actual undercover FBI agent who was UCE Mark. His moniker or his story was, hey, I'm from the UP and I'm interested in training, right? But he's really a FBI agent, and he was doing the same exact thing that Dan and Robeson were doing to Adam.
Right.
That guy was, that guy was suspicious to me too, because he's like, "Oh, I'm from the UP," and I'm listening to him talk. I said, "Bro, you're not from the UP. If you're from the UP, you sound like you're from the UP. You don't
The
sound like you're from the UP."
Not everybody's a Michigander. UP's Upper Peninsula.
Oh, yep,
Yep,
Upper
yep, yeah.
Peninsula of Michigan.
So there's a distinct accent there. I didn't know that.
Very distinct.
Oh,
Very
I didn't know that.
distinct.
Oh wow.
Yes.
And he did not have that accent.
Not even close. Come to find out, the dude was from California.
Of course, all bad people are from California. In my experience,
right.
Being from here. Okay, so let's. Oh, actually, I want to ask you about Barry Croft, this very interesting character who also is facing life in prison now, along with Adam Fox. He's not from Michigan; he's from Delaware. Tell us about Barry Croft.
Yeah, I mean, Barry Croft is like, your truck driver, kind of loudmouth guy. He's we spent pretty much a whole month, all of us in one cell together while the trial was happening. So I actually got to kind of know him. Prior to that, I didn't know him. You know what I mean? Saw him like once or twice, but I got to know him, and he's kind of like, I liked him because he was like, a white guy from the hood of Delaware who could just talk mad shit. You know what I mean? I mean, he was just good at it. He can just come up with these scenarios that just, it's so offensive you want to laugh. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of how he is. He drives trucks, so he's always out on the road. He makes good money. He takes care of his family, but he's just a very, intense, interesting guy. He's not a bad person, but he says things that, like, other people could be like, oh my god, like, you should never say that. And but yeah, I mean, for him, he's just, he does talk a lot. And I told him that, I said, Barry, you're talking, I said, dude, you just literally talked to me for an hour and 45 minutes and I didn't even say anything to you. And he's like, oh damn, that's for real. I said, yeah, bro, like, why do you think you're even here? It's because of what you literally just did, bro.
That's funny. Did he not wear a tricorner hat?
Yeah, dude, he wore that hat all the time.
Like a Minuteman? Okay.
Yeah, like he's literally driving the semi with the hat
on. And there's a lot of references to the American Revolution in all this, right? You guys are
right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's very into the Constitution. You know what I mean? He's very into the Constitution. He's a very Christian person. He's reads some Bible that's like from the 1500s or something like that. So he's like, this is the real one or whatever. So, he's really into that. He's into the founding fathers. So that's kind of, and that's another type of person that the government likes to prey on. Like, oh, you're really into the Bible and you're a Christian, and you're in a working class and you're about the American Revolution and you understand it. Yeah. It's like the perfect type of person for them to try to get riled up.
He also, I think this is right, he expressed a lot of violent fantasies about politicians.
Yep, he did. And a lot of them, a lot of the scenarios that he was talking about was about rioters. Like, they would get him riled up about the riots that were happening. So he essentially was saying, like, yo, if you try to do this shit to me, like, this is what I'm going to do to you. And then they say he was talking about the governor in that aspect, but really he's talking about people that are like burning cities down and stuff.
Okay. I want to hear about October 7th, 2020. This is the day you were arrested. Just tell the story. What happened?
Yeah, so it was a very regular day. I worked afternoons, so I went to work and ordered my lunch. as usual, I go to this place called Bodie's Corned Beef in downtown Plymouth, and I go there so often that when I went there, I would say, "Hey, can you make this burger for me? Because it's not on the menu." And they said, "Yeah." So I ordered there so often that they actually named a burger after me,
Hmm.
and they called it the Spicy Brando. So when I call, they already know what's up. I need a spicy Brando with fries, and I might get a Reuben too. Um, so I ordered my food, and I was literally about to leave for lunch, and the my
Where were you?
manager comes
Where
in.
were you? Where were you?
I was on the shop floor. I was
Gotcha.
on the shop
At
floor
work.
at my machine at
Gotcha.
work.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm at work, right in front of my machine. I'm about to run to the bathroom and then go leave for lunch. And my boss comes up to me and says, "Hey, Mark DeRocha wants to talk to you." That's like the shop manager, the whole manager guy. And I said, "Really? He's still here?" He said, "Yeah, man. Yeah, I guess he just wants to talk to you for a second." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And you know, my boss, I was actually pretty close with him. I was cool with him, and we had our agreements on as far as masks and stuff like that, right? So, he
Hmm.
really wasn't about that. And he was like, but I told him, I said, "Dude, I'm about to provide HR with all this medical information to show that like what they're doing, like they don't really need to do." And as we're walking down, he's like, we're walking down the hall, and I didn't realize this till later that it was like empty, like no one was around. You know what I mean? I didn't realize that till I got in jail, and I said, "Bro, there was like nobody in the shop except him." But he was like, "Hey, did you give HR, like, did you send them any emails?" And I was like, "No, I didn't do that." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And then he kind of led me to this room, and he was like, "Well, yeah, if you just walk through right there, and he'll be right there." And I'm like, "Huh, okay." So I walk in this room because the light's off. So I walk in, and I'm not seeing anything. And next thing you know, the lights flick on, and 15 plainclothes FBI guys tackle me down to the ground. "Stop resisting! Stop resisting! Put your hands behind your back!" And I'm like, "Dude, who are you? Like, I'm not doing anything." I'm like, "Really?" And they were all plainclothes, and they had baklavas over their face. So it wasn't like they were like, "Hey, we're the FBI." They just like literally kidnapped me and threw me in the back of an unmarked black car. They stripped me of all my stuff, dug through all my stuff, and then stole my phone right out of my pocket. I was like, "I don't consent to any of this. I don't consent for you to have my phone, none of that." And then I had my hands behind my back, and they brought me out front to this dude who was in this black SUV, this like black Yukon, and he comes out with the slick black hair in his suit, and they're like, "Is this him?" And he's like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "What?" He said, "What's your name?" I said, "Brandon." And he looked at the FBI guy. He's like, "This is him. Put him in there." And I'm like, "Shit, bro, am I about to die? Like, who the fuck are these guys?" You know? And I didn't find out till like we pull up at a police station, and I'm thinking, and the car ride there, I'm thinking, dude, some random group of guys is about to kill me, and I didn't even fight back. Like, oh, I can't live with myself right now. So when we went to the police station, I said, "Oh, this is the government. Okay." Like, well, at least I won't get like totally executed right now, right?
Wow.
So yeah, then they just brought me in and started questioning me, and told me what the charges were, and I was just like, "What? Like, are you serious? For what?" You know?
And then you're in jail.
Yep. Then I'm in jail.
And um, had you ever been in jail before?
I did maybe like a week or two for driving on the suspended some years ago. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a criminal record at all.
Mm-hmm. What was jail like?
It was very depressing time. Time is so weird in jail. It really doesn't make any sense. You try to just forget about time, and you just got to kind of be in the present. You get used to not doing anything for hours, because in a county jail atmosphere, it's not like prison where you get to go out on a yard, you get to go work out, you get to do this, you get to go in your buddy's room and all this stuff. I'm in literally a small unit that has like 14 people in it, but it's only made for 10, and you got people sleeping on the floor. It's just super, super ghetto. You got one sink, one bathroom. That's where you get your water. You know what I mean? There's fights going on. It's just like chaos. So you get used to just sitting there on your bunk and just like staring at stuff or reading the same book that you read 20 times.
How long were you in that jail?
So my total stay in jail, I believe, was 18 months. So I was there for 17
In
or 18
that
months.
first jail? The first jail?
Yeah, dude, I didn't go outside one time. I literally didn't see the sun the entire time.
You
The
weren't
windows
even
were blacked out.
you weren't even in a proper prison. You were in a lockup basically for the whole time.
Yeah, and then like COVID would come through there, so they'd lock everything down even harder.
What who were your cellmates? How many people were you with in your cell?
So yeah, in that small room there would be like 14 people, or 12 to 14, but there's only enough room for 10. You have, 5 bunk beds lined up, but then they would put people on the floor in these like plastic, what we would call a boat. It would be this like polymer mat thing that they would just, big like heavy thing you just throw on the ground and then throw your mat there. So you get up to go to the bathroom and you're stepping over some guy that's like, on the floor because there's no room for anyone in here. So you have to like step over this guy just to go to the bathroom. It's crazy.
Wait, I did not know you were in that for 17 months.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Do you know about the Fourth Amendment, Brandon? I mean,
yes, absolutely.
What? I mean, this is well, I wasn't prepared for that. That's wow. I mean, not that it would have been. Yeah, go ahead.
It was hell, man. But the one thing that I had, and I commend Mike Hills for this. He was my attorney. I said, look, man, just give me something to do when you get the discovery. I want to see it. I got to see everything. And
Yeah.
he told his private investigators and stuff like that. He said, you give Brandon everything he asked for. Okay. So I said, dude, I want a laptop. Get me a computer so I can look through all this stuff that it's impossible for me to look through it with paper. So he got me a laptop and like 4 hard drives with all the information on there. So I said, boom, you just got another attorney on this case because we're about to do this, So I just spent all my time just going through discovery and just typing stuff up and doing all this stuff. And that was able to get me out of the cell, which was nice.
Okay. Oh, you got out of the cell? What do you mean?
Yeah. So I would hit the button and be like, hey, I need to use the computer. And a CO will come in, okay, unlock the door or open the door, close it back, take me down to this little room that was about, 10 feet away from the cell, but it was a little room that was quiet, and they would shut the door and lock me in there, and I would just do my thing.
Okay. You must have met a lot of criminals.
Yes, I did meet a lot of criminals. I met a lot of innocent people though too.
Really?
Yeah, there was a lot of people who, didn't do anything wrong. They were just, the cops just saw them and they're like, oh, you're a black guy, so I'm gonna check you for drugs, right? I'm gonna violate your Fourth Amendment. I'm gonna do all this stuff. Most of the people in there were there for nonviolent behaviors. And as a libertarian anarchist, those aren't crimes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So someone possesses some material, or they have a firearm to defend themselves. Most of the people that were there of just like possession of drugs or possession of a firearm. Really? That's, yeah. Now there was some other people there for like some violent stuff, but the majority was just non-violent behavior, man.
Wow. Now I'm assuming some of them knew who you were.
Oh yeah, everyone did, the entire jail.
Oh yeah, so you were a bit of a celebrity in the jail then.
Yeah, unfortunately I was. It was like fame that I didn't want. Like, I could you don't talk about the case, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
very few, people, it's just like, hey man, like this shit's not real, like they're calling me, big B, like big terrorist and all this stuff, right?
Mm.
Like it's something sweet, and then it's, you can't tell them what's really going on. You can't talk about the case. So you're just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. They're not like making fun of me or talking crap, but they're
Okay.
just like thinking I'm like, this super like, badass guy or something, and I'm just like this regular dude, who
You're
just
like,
got framed by the FBI.
they thought you were like a what, like a right wing Osama bin Laden or something?
Yep, yep. They thought that until they got to know me. So the cell I was in, I was the only white guy in there for like 8 months.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So, but it was straight, dude. They all
Yeah.
loved me. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I could call one of them that are in the joint right now, and they would get on the line and be like, "Yo, dude, B is my dog. Like, I would do anything for that guy." You know what I mean? B ain't a racist. He ain't a racist. He's as black as I am. That's exactly what they would say.
Mm. Well, you white
Uh,
supremacists are good at fooling the Negroes. So, yeah.
yeah, it's crazy, man.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, so you're being called a white supremacist in the national media every day basically during this time, right? And they're not
Right.
hearing it, huh? They're not hearing it.
Yeah, I mean, they would just call me Proud Boy. Like, oh, we got Proud Boy over here.
Hmm.
One of the Mexican guys, he would be like, man, you and the Proud Boys, bro, go Trump. You know what I mean? He kept saying that to me. I'm just
Right,
like,
right.
all right, man.
I'm not surprised actually by that experience you had, and I'm really glad about that. Must have made you feel much better, I would think.
Yeah, a lot of people in there kind of knew something was going on.
Mm,
You
oh
know what I
yeah.
mean?
Mm,
Yeah, they knew it wasn't real.
yeah.
Some of them thought so, some of them didn't.
Okay, so now October 7th, you get arrested, you get kidnapped, and you're told that you were plotting to kidnap the governor, and then you finally get the laptop with all the evidence in there. And I can only imagine what it was like when you first went into that room with that laptop and started looking through the documents. What did you find, and what were you thinking and feeling when you did that?
Yeah, so, when I got arrested and in the months that I sat there waiting to get discovery, it was like I didn't really know what happened because whatever they're
Yeah.
saying happened when I read the criminal complaint, I wasn't there. And, it was something that someone else did, or like an informant did with Fox, or a conversation they had privately, right? So it was like, how am I even in this? And as I'm looking through Discovery, I'm reading the text messages from Dan Chappell. I'm reading the chats from him. I found text messages from FBI agents to their handlers or to their informants. And like, dude, all those text messages you were talking about, or people were talking about, dude, I found that in there, buried in a bunch of PDF files. I said,
Wow.
Mike, dude, I just hit gold. Look at what this agent is trying to say, and it was hidden in the discovery. So I find that, and I started putting all the pieces together. I said, you know what, dude, this is exactly what I've been talking about for years. They want to call me a crazy conspiracy theorist, but we already knew that government agents created fake terrorism, in order
Hmm.
to, you know, politically persecute people they didn't like. So it was
Hmm.
just, okay, now that I know that's what happened for sure, I can really get a better idea of how we're going to beat this. You know what I mean? Because this is just totally insane. I didn't realize the depth that they went. I mean, I found aerial surveillance of me like driving to work. They had drone planes flying over me for like days, like at nighttime. Like I'm getting off work and it's like, infrared or like night vision looking at me and driving. And I'm like, really, for this? I'm not even doing anything.
So you discovered that there were informants who were acting as agent provocateurs.
Yes, 100%. That's
That was
that's all they were doing.
right, but you discovered that.
Yes. Yes.
Your lawyer wouldn't have discovered that on his own.
Um, they might have found something. They could have. I don't know if it happened at the same time. But as far as I knew, I was the first person. Like, Fox's attorney could have found it like a month before I did or something. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
didn't really talk to all the other attorneys. They talked to each other, the attorneys did. But as far as I knew, I mean, I found it kind of early from getting the discovery. So it's kind of speculation. You know what I mean? I'm not for sure if I'm the first person who found that stuff, but shortly after we found it, all those motions started coming in
Yeah.
of, hey, those motions in the summertime, hey, this FBI agent said this, we want to get these text messages in, blah blah blah.
And then there was a bit of a miracle happened. I was blown away. I still don't understand why this happened, but I'm glad it did. BuzzFeed, of all places, reported on this, and now all of a sudden we all know that there are 12 informants involved in this, and was 14 people arrested and 12 informants. uh, that's quite a ratio.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
well, you know what? I compared you to the Black Panthers, et cetera, and Martin Luther King. I don't think the Panthers ever had that many FBI agents on them. I mean,
Right.
they mobbed you up completely.
Big
So,
mob.
so talk about that when you found out about the BuzzFeed piece.
So when I found out about the BuzzFeed piece, I was just like, thank God, man, there's someone out there that is actually gonna speak the truth on what's really going on. And I didn't find out till a little bit later, like, oh, this is kind of a more left leaning
Mm-hmm.
news organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had my mom do some research on it. She said, yeah, they're kind of far left, and I said, well, either way, it doesn't matter because they're actually telling the truth about what's going on. And I know some people on the left, they kind of don't like police and things like that. So I don't know if like that was the causal factor, but it seemed like to me they did a really good job at really deeply investigating the situation and what was going on. And if it wasn't for them, because there was like a media blackout after we got arrested. It was like nothing really. And then it started to kind of build up, and then the BuzzFeed stuff came out, and then the Richard Trask thing came out, and the mainstream media was like, "Ooh, we're not gonna, we can't talk about this."
Oh, right. So Richard Trask was the head of he was the head of the FBI office there, and he gets busted for all kinds of bad things. Or is it?
So he wasn't the head of the FBI Detroit field office. He was the guy who signed off. He was going to be the government's star main witness. He signed off on all the affidavits. He signed off on all the search warrants and everything. He was essentially the person that Jason Chambers, went to and said, "Here's all the paperwork for this. I just need you to sign off on it and give it to the prosecutors and whatever." And he said, "Okay, yep, no problem. I'll be testifying for you and all that stuff." Bang, bang. And then come to find out, he's trying to, cuck his wife, and he's at swingers parties and doing all sorts of crazy stuff and using violence against his significant other.
He beat the shit out of his wife or girlfriend, right?
Yeah, he beat the living crap out of her. I was able to get the audio and see all the footage in jail. I said,
Wow.
"Yo, you guys got to get that," you know. So I'm watching it on the computer, and it's just so disturbing. Dude, the 911 call was disturbing as well. And you look at the sheets, there's blood everywhere. Her head is just gashed, and just blood pouring out. Her neck is like purple. So what he did was he got on top of her, grabbed her head, and bashed it into the corner of the nightstand over and over and over and over again. Then she manages to get a little bit free. Okay. And so as she gets a little bit free, he grabs her by the throat and just literally strangles her for like minutes, dude. Just strangling. Her neck was so bruised and purple. I'm surprised she didn't break an esophagus or something like that. So she had to grab him, but how she got out was she tried grabbing him by the beard, that didn't work, so she grabbed him by the testicles, man, and just essentially just like tried to rip him off of him, and that finally got him off of her, and he just fled, stole her vehicle, wasted, fled the scene in his boxers. Cops find him 2 hours later, just blood all over his face. He's in his underwear, blood all over his body. And he's like, "What's going on? Like, what are you guys here for?" She wound up calling the cops and said, "Yeah, my husband just," what she said is, "Oh my God, my husband just beat the shit out of me." And they're like, "Oh my God, you want medical attention?" She's like, "I don't know. I don't know what's going on." It was very, very disturbing.
Wow. So I guess I'm just confused about who he is, though. So is he an agent, or was he an agent, or just an informant?
No, he's an actual FBI agent.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Okay. Right. But he just
Yep.
wasn't he just wasn't at the top of the office, but he was an agent. Okay. Right. And then who is the guy though who ended up being in charge of the January 6th investigations? Right. Wasn't there somebody who moved from Michigan to DC?
Yep. So that guy, as far as the hierarchy, that guy was the head of the whole Detroit field office. So the
Right.
whole Michigan
Right.
FBI. Below him, like one, maybe two steps, is Trask.
Gotcha. But that
Yeah.
guy, but after, didn't that guy go from Michigan to DC right before January 6th, and he was like responsible for a lot of the January 6th stuff too?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure he was the one who signed off on the TEI, the Terrorism Enterprise Investigation, which is the biggest investigation you can actually do. You need permission as an agent from your superiors in order to do that. He was the guy who gave that permission, as far as I know. And then after everything was said and done and we were arrested, he was immediately promoted to the DC field office, and now he's in charge of the whole January 6th thing, ironically, right?
What a coincidence. How strange. And
Yeah.
so of course the idea that FBI informants were involved in January 6th is absurd. Who would think that? How could that happen?
Right.
All right. So let's talk about the trial. So some wild stuff happened in the trial. Some kind of great moments in the history of American liberty, I would say, happened in the trial, and some outrageous moments also of government malfeasance. Um, just what was the experience like walking into that courtroom?
Yeah, it was so weird, man, because you had all these reporters and people, you didn't really know. They're just like really focusing on you and looking at you. And when you call your family at the end of the day, they're reading you some of these news articles, and they're talking about like the expression you made and like what you looked like when the prosecution said this or whatever. And it was just weird to have this microscope on you of, and people that you don't know. So that was weird. um but something that made me happy is that we were actually progressing. Okay, it's like, all right, this is the moment I've been waiting for. We already had an adjournment. We had two
Mhm.
adjournments that prolonged the thing. I'm like, we got to go to trial. Let's beat this case so I can get out of here. I don't deserve to be in here. And when the trial was happening, I was just so glad that this was really it. Like, this is moving forward. I'm getting closer to when I'm going to be free. But it was also super stressful too. I had so many doubts, running through my head. Very crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you could have done life. Am I right?
Yep, I was facing a life sentence.
That's what the prosecutors were asking for.
Yep, absolutely. They wanted the full terrorism enhancement, and the full enhancement on the conspiracy charge. They wanted to put me away for life, for sure.
Just want to sit with that for a second. Can you imagine being a prosecutor? I've always wondered about that. Like, what kind of a person would want to do that job?
Right, right. I thought about that all the time, man. Sitting in the cell and thinking, is there any way that, how can this person not see and be like, you know what, I'm not prosecuting this. This isn't
Right.
just.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that person is. I can't relate to that at all. And especially in your case, like wanting to put you in prison for life for what you did, which is nothing. I Even if you had done something, I wouldn't want to put you in prison for life. I mean, I can't imagine that. I just can't
Right.
imagine that. All right, now, what was the evidence that the government used against you?
Okay, so I guess if you want to call it evidence,
Right.
the essentially what the government tried to do, they couldn't prove that I agreed to anything. They couldn't prove that I participated in anything besides like trainings, and they knew
Mm-hmm.
that was legal. So what they tried to do is they tried to use my books against me. They tried to use my beliefs. They tried to use the fact that I had an anarchy flag, that I said I was an anarchist. Um, and they used statements that I made and applied them like out of context to make it seem like things that they weren't. They wanted to just make me look as violent and as extreme as possible by keeping out all the exculpatory evidence. Even if they got to take a little small clip and clip it out, they'll play that and make the defense fight to bring the context in, and hopefully the judge will help the prosecution make that not happen for the defense. But yeah, essentially just framing me to be something that I'm not by saying, look at what he said. That's violent. That's scary. Convict him of conspiring to kidnap the governor.
I'm sorry. Did you say that the government used your books against you?
100%. They took a picture of my books, put them up on the screen, and said, yeah, Mr. Caserta has been drowning in conspiracy theories for years. Just look at the books that he has. One says practical anarchy. That means he wants violence and chaos in our society. Bro, it was a book by Stefan Molyneux called Practical Anarchy. It's a, I'm sure you know what book I'm talking about, you know? And it's like, oh, this one says none dare call it conspiracy, and they put him up there, and all the attorneys were like, oh yeah, like the defense attorneys was like, you know what, I'm so glad. My attorney said, I hope they put your books up there. He said, I hope they put your books up there, dude. If they do that, that's going to be the worst mistake they've ever made against you, and he put him up there, and Mike was like, watch this, here I go. And he goes up there and just annihilates the prosecution on them trying to bring my books up there and make me look like a criminal because of what I read.
Well, that's good. I was about to get rid of all my books right now because that's really because I'm not trying to do 18 months in jail.
Right.
First Amendment, anyone? Like
Right.
what? Used your books. And it wasn't even the anarchist cookbook, right?
No, wasn't even that.
Just ideas, am I correct? Just ideas.
Nope, just ideas. And they called it anti-authority, anti-government ideology.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, you are anti-authority and anti-government. Now,
yeah, I think everyone is to a certain extent.
Well, yeah, right. Now, the thing is, though, I mean, you do know that in the history of anarchism, there have been anarchists, some anarchists who have called for killing heads of state and have actually tried to do it. Back in the day, during the Emma Goldman years, I mean, if they were smart, they would have gone to the early history of anarchism and shown that, right? But you're not, do you not agree with that strategy? I take it you don't, of killing heads of state?
I mean, I don't. We can talk about that philosophically. The state, is engaging in mass aggression. So, could it be justified? Maybe. I think it's debatable. Is it pragmatic or a good idea? Probably not. Like, you're probably just going to get killed by government agents immediately, if you were to try to do that. Plus, you can't just abolish the government like, yo, you're going to go abolish the government right now by using physical force. That's not really going to happen. This dynamic is happening in the minds of people. It's their beliefs of what they think morality is. And the goal is to try to wake people up to get them to realize that what they're believing in isn't real, and you don't need to use force. You don't need to use violence. You just need to walk away, and say, you know what? No, I'm going to live my life, and then just be willing to stand on that principle if force is brought unto you.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm reading you as seeing that as self-defense, right?
Yes,
You're not
absolutely.
right. Because the government initiates aggression at times, and when it does, that's when it's self-defense.
Right. Like, I pay my taxes, right? Or like, I'm not like going on some tax revolt or whatever. Do I
Yeah.
agree with it? No. I know it's totally immoral for that to happen. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, we need to go attack like the IRS agents. I'm not really sure that would help anything. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? What's that really going to help besides just make you kind of look like a horrible person? And you're risking, there's a lot of risk. It's
Hmm.
just, I think that we can fix things in a different way. Just because I say it would be justified, like you can think something is justified, but not actually like go do it. You could agree with something, but be like, yeah, well, I agree that could be justified, but I'm not gonna like go do that on my own. You know what I mean?
Now, is this true that there were statements or references made by you and other defendants um, to the founding fathers that were used against you in court by the government?
Oh yeah, dude. Yup,
What?
absolutely. They used quotes from Sam Adams, quotes from Thomas Jefferson. They used, dude, Barry Croft. Barry Croft has a tattoo right here that says "We the People." Okay, the prosecution made him hold up his arm to show the jury the tattoo, and they put it up a picture up there too, and said, he has violent extremist tattoos. And then look, after they did that, then we go out to break, and they lift the projector, the projector thing,
Hmm.
and behind it you literally see all the founding fathers there, and it says "We the People" in the same writing that he has on his hand in the courtroom. It's like, what?
Um, yet another element of this that I've never been struck dumb in an interview like this so many times. It's just, um, what do let's step back for a second. What does this mean about our society right now? Like, what does this mean about the government right now? Because this seems like something that wouldn't have happened 20, 30, 40 years ago. Maybe I'm naive about that. I don't think so. But like the people who run the government now, um, and criminal justice system in general, in particular, like don't seem even aware of what they're supposed to be doing, and they're not even aware of the history of the structure they're inhabiting. It I mean, it sort of speaks to where the left has gone in recent years, right? I mean, at least the left used to be for free speech, at least nominally, and used to protect defendants' rights. And it used to know about the founding fathers and used to think that they were a good people. Like, I don't know what
Right.
God, what does this mean? I don't know. Just what do you think?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think this. Yeah, I think this means this is, the agents that are involved in the system right now. We have a different government. Like there's the shell of the system that appears to be one thing, right? But the
mm,
people that make up the inside of it don't actually believe that. That's what they project out to you to kind of save face, and then their own beliefs of what they want to use their authority for, um, they kind of justify that by looking at other people's behaviors and beliefs and saying, okay, I align with that type of authoritarianism. Okay, you know what? Yeah, the rule kind of says this, but I know what the right thing is, and my good intentions are going to supersede, the law or the Constitution. So we're just going to, make this policy or make this judgment or make this law, right? And then you have enough of that going on, then it's just kind of like an echo chamber of all the, psychopathic tyrants and authoritarians are getting in the positions of power and getting together and saying, oh yeah, I'm all about the Constitution. I respect it just as much as it gives me the ability to dominate you, and you think it's legitimate. But as far as that, I don't really care about it at all. I'm just using it to control you and take your property.
well, because they know for sure in their bones that they are good and you are evil. I mean, there's no question about it for them.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so the law, history, the Constitution, all that stuff, that's secondary. If you know that you got Hitler in front of you, forget about the rules, forget about the law, forget about tradition. We gotta take this guy down because you're Hitler. It's all the same to them, all evil. Um, am I right that one of the books that they used against you was a book by Smedley Butler?
Yes, General Smedley Butler.
I just wrote a review of a history of Smedley Butler. Yes, I just wrote a review about that, about him. So they used that in the court.
Yes, yes,
What did they have?
absolutely insane, man.
What did they have to say about Smedley Butler and War is a Racket?
Well, I think they just said something kind of like, you know, I want to go to war or something like that. I don't know, but my attorney was the one who specifically pointed this book out
Uh-huh.
because he's like, wait a second, because he was looking at the books and he's like, wait a second, General Smedley D. Butler. He looked him up. He's like, dude, this guy was like a multi Medal of Honor winner, Congressional Medal of Honor or whatever. Um, Whoa, Bob, this guy's like a legit veteran. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if this
Mm-hmm.
makes sense, you're into military stuff, you're training with firearms, like, why wouldn't you have a book like this? It's not talking about, using violence against the government. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
and besides, what are they going to do? What are they, the thought police? They're going to police your books and your thoughts. So he said, I hope they do bring your books up. And my attorney essentially just shows reasonable doubt, like, yeah, this guy is like a legitimate military veteran, right? Who, he's not a criminal, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't
Mm-hmm.
do any terrorism, right? He's got Medal of Honors, right? And they're like, yep, yep. And it's like, okay, so what's the problem
He was anti-war. That's the problem.
then? Right.
He was a rebel, I guess. That's
Exactly.
the problem. Yeah, but that is utterly amazing, like so much of this is. A couple of other amazing things I want to talk about before we close up here. But the defense had a bunch of witnesses it wanted to bring into the court to testify, and what happened to them?
Yeah, so this was something that was really shocking to me because I asked some of the marshals about this, and they said, they've been working for the marshal service for years, and they said they never seen this before. And some of them have worked there for like 17 years. So usually, when the defense puts on a case and they have witnesses that they want to call, the jury is there to see them plead the fifth. So they'll be able to see the prosecution essentially coerce the person testifying and saying, if you testify, we're going to charge you with this or that. You're facing these charges, right? You're not charged now, but if you do this thing that's going to hinder our ability to prosecute, and if you try to expose our lies, then we'll charge you with a crime. The judge allowed that to happen completely behind the scenes, both times in both trials, where the jury was not there. He would do it on break time, or he would do it at the end of the day and make everyone come in and allow the prosecution to charge them with totally irrelevant stuff that they literally never ever came close to even doing. Allow them to make those charges and then say, oh, you don't want to plead, you want to plead the fifth? Okay, no problem. Yep, I'll see you later. No one got to know. No one got to see it.
They never testified.
No, no. The prosecution charged all of our defense, or they threatened to charge all of our defense witnesses. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yes.
you know, I go up there to court, I'm wanting to testify, and my attorney's like, dude, they're gonna slap state charges on you, man. Like, if he's like, I'm worried about you. Like, I know you want to go, but, and I'm thinking, I can't expose their lies or do anything in a cage, man. Like, they've already arrested me for this. They want me, they want me done. They want me gone out of society. And if I go up there and, yeah, I might help and speak the truth, but they're going to get mad about that and say, you know what, you have engaged in terrorist language or threats of terrorism, or
Mm-hmm.
aiding and abetting a terrorist enterprise or whatever. Just, it doesn't matter. Just, this is what we think you did, even though you didn't, and then we're going to charge you, but you have no choice. You're just going to have to sit in jail again and fight it just like you did. But either way, we got you out of the way. It's more likely you're going to take a plea now. So I didn't want to risk that. And they did that to every single defense witness that wanted to come up and tell the truth about what was going on.
And the jury never saw this.
No, no.
Yeah, so I've been learning a lot about the criminal justice system lately, and I have friends who are in the middle of it who are probably going to do prison time soon. And the thing that's striking about it uh, is how third world it all is. Like, it doesn't seem like it should be the United States in 2022. What goes on in the criminal justice system now, it seems like absolute banana republic um, practices and stuff that we know is not supposed to happen. Everybody in America knows this. None of this should happen, but it is happening, and not just to you, but to lots and lots of people. It's just
Yes.
staggering. I don't get it, why this is not like known, and why it's not a major issue, why we're not talking about this, how prosecutors and judges break the rules all the time, and the consequence is that people lose their freedom, their lives, their livelihoods, and they go to cages. It's it's really, it's just, I keep saying this, but I don't know what else to say. It's just shocking.
Yeah, it's their mindset is in the authoritarian mindset. And it's not about, they'll say it's about getting down to the truth and getting to justice, but really it's a game for them. It's a game that they play in the court. They're on the court, passing the ball back and forth. It's a game that they play to win. They want to win. And they got to
Mm-hmm.
secure that body in that cage to get that win. And that's all they're trying to do. And they don't care because you're just like some little peasant. You're just you're the one that shines my shoes. You're the one that fixes my car. When it
Mm-hmm.
gets broken, you're nothing. I could
Mm-hmm.
I could buy 20 of you if I wanted. And that's
That's
kind
right.
of what they think. So they don't really care, because it's kind of like, you know, oh yeah, someone's dog died. Yeah, that's a dog. So what? Who
Mm-hmm.
cares? That's kind of
Yep.
how they think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. It's all about class, and you are of the lower class, and you therefore it doesn't matter if you go to a cage. Um, okay, April 8th. Happy ending here, at least for you. Um, talk about that day. You found some, thank God you had some good jurors.
Yeah. When they read that verdict, I was so amazed and happy, and this relief came off of me, and I just laughed. And part of the reason why I laughed is because it was my birthday that day.
Oh.
So yes. So
Nice.
I'm like, there's like, dude, if there's no way the universe would put me in jail for life on my birthday, right? Come on, it can't happen, you
Right.
know? So I'm thinking there, and then they said not guilty. And I said, I just, I was amazed. I laughed, and I walked out. I said, let's get some food, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let me just breathe this air in. It's so good, to have fresh air. And I just looked at the jury, and I said, I was like, kind of shook my head at them and kind of just mouthed like, I love you, like, I love you, thank you. And that's what I kept saying, like, in my mind, is like, I hope they realize the truth, like, I hope that they have love in their heart, and that they can see, what's really going on. And that jury was a good jury. They made the right choice. I wish they would have did the same for Adam and Barry,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel sorry for what happened to them. They were truly preyed on by the government. But in my case, the jury made the right decision for me, and said, you know what, get this boy out of here.
Nice. Um, so then you finally got your guns back. How long did that take?
Yeah. So once again, I commend Mike Hills. He's a total badass. He got my guns and all my gear back. Uh, Literally everything that they took, he got that back within about a month and a half, something
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
So
So I got
tell
it
me
back
about,
pretty quick.
I really want to hear about this. What was it like getting your guns back? Tell me exactly what happened.
Oh man, I felt whole and complete again. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It was literally like, I'm not like totally attached to the property like it's my identity, but
Sure.
my property is kind of an extension of things that I believe in and things that I like and things that I
Mm-hmm.
care about. So when all your stuff is taken away from you, it's a portion of you is taken away, especially if you're facing the fact that you could never even use one of these tools to defend yourself ever again.
Mm-hmm.
That right there is depressing in and of itself. So it was just like meeting an old friend again. Once I got my stuff, I loaded it up, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I know I'm safe now because I was actually concerned about out of court retribution from the feds,
Oh, wow.
and without a way to defend myself, it makes it a lot easier for me to get suicided. You know what I mean? And that could be a little bit conspiratorial, but stuff like that's happened before, and they really want me. They don't want me in society. So yeah, it was amazing, dude, and it all still fit and it all still worked. They didn't break anything, so thank God for that.
Where did you go to a range?
Oh yeah, like we picked my stuff up in Michigan, and then we went to my aunt's house in Ohio and just shot rounds and rounds for hours. We had the whole. I said, "Hey, Grandma, come down to Ohio. You're coming down. You're gonna be shooting." I said, "Auntie, come on down here. You're gonna be pulling out. I'm gonna let you shoot both my ARs." You know what I'm saying? My cousin came down. My mom, everything. I said, we're having a whole range day today. We're gonna barbecue and we're gonna shoot guns and we're gonna exercise our rights, you know what I mean, to the fullest. So we just had a blast, man.
Glorious. I love it. Glorious. All right. Yeah, so retribution. Um, you're making them look real bad. I mean, you already did during the trial, and now in this interview, doing the media you're making the FBI look terrible, and more and more people are finding out about how crooked they are in this case and in general. I could imagine some FBI agents wanting to do harm to you.
Yep.
What do you
Yeah,
think?
absolutely. I mean, I think it's very possible. If these agents are willing to do what they already did, what makes me think that they aren't willing to take it to the next step? You know, if they're like, they already want people they don't like in cages for life.
Mm-hmm.
So really, ultimately, that's just their legal way of, killing you. If they get your body in a cage, you're dead from society. You
Mm-hmm.
know, your soul just so happens to be alive still in your physical body. But if they're willing to do this type of stuff to regular people, they really don't like them and they don't want them in society. And if they fail, a lot of authoritarians and government agents absolutely despise losing. They hate looking like a fool. They hate being exposed. That's why a lot of police, they hate being filmed while they're giving tickets to people. They know that it's
Mm-hmm.
wrong. They know what they're doing is wrong, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
want anyone else to see it. So their reaction as an authoritarian is just to use the violence to handle the situation. And a lot of these people don't really, they can't argue their position philosophically, so they're just going to get butthurt and emotional about it and want to use violence against people that they don't like. And that's definitely a concern in the back of my mind. People would think, oh, the government would never create terrorism, right? And frame other people for it. Well, they did do that. I'm living proof of that. So to think that, oh, they wouldn't do something like off the books at night, to just get that guy out of the way who's exposing their criminality, you know, um, I don't think for a second that they wouldn't try to do that. So I just try to, I want to be out there enough to where people know the story and they know the truth. That will also protect me as well. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to do this interview is that if you ever commit suicide, we will have some ideas about what happened. Yeah. So you've had trouble finding a job, right? Since you got out?
Yeah, it's been pretty rough. I've put in so many applications, and so far I really haven't gotten anywhere.
Um, yeah. And what are your skills again?
Well, I have a pretty broad range of skills. I mean, I've worked in customer service. I've worked in like retail. I've worked at group homes before. I've worked in food. I've worked in machining and roofing and labor stuff. I'm very good with firearms, so I know a lot about firearms. I could, if you know someone who wants to buy a gun, like I can sell them a gun. You know what I mean? I can get them set up something perfect that they want. So I have a pretty large skill set. I know how to work on mountain bikes. I know how to fix bikes, things like that. So, but I guess my main focus as far as trying to get the most money right now was to go right back into the machining world because I can run those computer numerical machines and cut parts pretty good. So I was just looking to get back into that because that's what I made the most money on. But I don't know, I might have to try a different avenue if this isn't working. I've been trying for months now to get back into that field and really haven't had much success. I don't know if people are looking my name up and seeing who I am and then just, throwing me aside. I'm not sure. There's no way for me to know.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Well, hopefully someone listening or watching has a job for you. I would love for that to happen. Brandon, thank you for everything. And thank you for coming on this show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad I got another chance to get the truth out, and expose these people for what they're doing.
Exactly. All right. Best of luck, and hope to see you sometime soon.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. If you would like to help Brandon get back on his feet after what the government did to him, a GiveSendGo has been set up for him. Go to givesendgo.com/kinetic truth to donate. That link is also in the show notes. I hope you can help. Thank you. This is the Unregistered Podcast, and I'm Thaddeus Russell. To become a patron of the show and have access to bonus episodes, AMAs, and the unreported news analysis show, go to patreon.com/unregistered. Thanks for listening.